Hey everyone, so I wanted to make my first update video on Furina. It's been maybe a day after my initial upload, and I've been thinking about her kit a bit more, listening to other people, other theory crafters and stuff talk about her kit, and I wanted to share with you guys some of my changed thoughts on parts of her kit, especially her constellations, especially Constellation 2. So speaking of the original video, thank you everyone for watching. It's been a joy seeing your support and all the comments. I'm slowly going through them, see if there are any questions that I need to answer, and it's been great to see all of you guys. Speaking about some of the comments on the initial video, some of you brought up some discussion points on Furina C2. Now initially, I was a bit down on her C2, kind of describing the pros and cons on her Hydro Infusion and how it balances with whether or not your skill does damage and skill does healing. But there are a good many of you that mentioned the benefits of C2 that I think I've overlooked, especially because since I play Genshin as a free-to-play, I don't really pay too close attention to constellations unless like I'm simping for a character. But many of you definitely brought up some good points about her constellation 2 that I wanted to talk about right now. So I made a graphic about her C2. On the left is the actual text, you can read it, but on the right I just quickly summarized it. So just a recap, remember Furina can switch between Uxia and Numa forms just from charged attacks, and whatever form she's in changes how her skill works. Her regular skill when you're in Uxia will deal off-field damage, which seems to act like official off-field damage, and it consumes your party's HP to increase its own damage. In contrast, while in Numa state, your skill would just do some periodic party healing. Now if you have C2 while you're in Uxia state, and you activate your skill, along with the off-field damage, you will gain a 10-second Hydro Infusion, or 7 hits, whichever comes first, and the damage of those hits will be increased by 15% of Furina's max HP. Now here's one of the things I got wrong. I assumed that in Uxia form you don't actually get 15% max HP conversion under normal attacks, but you actually do, so whoops. And along with that extra damage, each of your hits will heal the party every 1 second based on Furina's max HP. In contrast, when you're in Numa form, along with this normal skill granting periodic healing when you use your skill, again 10-second Hydro Infusion or 7 hits, but this time the damage will be increased by 30% of Furina's max HP, so an extra 15 compared to Uxia form. And on top of that, each hit will consume 1% max HP from the entire party. Now I'm going to reiterate what my initial thoughts on the C2 were. As you can see with her C2, the extra damage from her Hydro Infusion comes from her Numa form. So you do more damage on field as Furina, but your normal skill will only do periodic healing. So when I initially read this, sure, you get this extra damage when Furina is on field while in Numa form, but if you're in Numa form, your skill is not doing damage, it's just healing. And my initial thought was her Uxia's normal skill is her main damage and her off-field utility. So if you want to do more on-field damage with her, you don't get the benefits of her skill's off-field damage. But a few things have changed with my thoughts on this constellation now that I've given it more thought. First, like I said before, I kind of assumed that you don't get the damage conversion from her max HP when you're on field while in Uxia form, so my bad. Second of all, let's just focus on using C2's on-field capabilities while in Uxia. So while you're on field, you get the off-field damage from her skill, which is the majority of her damage. But on top of that, along with the Hydro on-field damage, you gain healing while you hit. And this is actually super important because her normal skill that does the off-field damage consumes your party's HP. And along with synergizing with her ult buff, this heavily incentivizes you to run Furina with a healer. But if she can deal damage while healing the party, you can essentially free a healer slot from your team and add in another damage dealer or a support, which is huge for team DPS. This idea is also the same while you're in Numa form. While you're on field, you'll be doing more damage with Furina with her Hydro infused attacks. And though you'll be consuming max HP from your party, your normal skill will be healing you as well. So in both cases, you gain the benefit of increased damage from Furina, either from her Hydro Infusion or her skill, and you get healing from her. And remember, you can switch from Uxia to Numa with her charge attacks. So with C2, you don't really have to choose between whether or not you want her to deal damage or primarily heal. She can kind of do both at the same time, which is really good. Next, let's just look at the C2 damage from her Hydro Infusion in Numa form. So it says the damage will be increased by 30% of Furina's max HP. And remember, this has a maximum of 7 hits. Now, a good comparison that I saw someone brought up was with Yelan's C6. So with Yelan's C6, she basically gets 5 normal attacks that turn into breakthrough barbs, and these breakthrough barbs deal 156% of a normal breakthrough barb. Now, if we look at the breakthrough barb damage at talent level 10, it's 21% max HP. Now, 150% of that is around 30% max HP. So you get 5 hits with 30% max HP, and well, if we just look back at Furina C2, oh, you look at that. Her Hydro Infusion is around 30% max HP scaling. And instead of 5 hits, you actually get 7. So if it works like that, that's a lot of damage for a C2. And lastly, with her added Hydro Infusion abilities, you gain an extra ability to heal and take away the HP of your entire party. And this is extremely relevant with Furina's Burst. Now we know that she can gain a maximum of 450 stacks to gain that damage percent buff for her entire team and her healing bonus. But it's actually fairly difficult to get 450 stacks, and I don't think we should assume that per every Furina ult, you'll get the max stacks, which is why C2 is extremely important with her ult synergy. Since you get extra sources of healing or consuming HP from her Hydro Infused attacks hitting enemies, you get more sources of HP change for your party, so you can get more Fanfare stacks to increase the damage percent buff that she provides. Now I was watching a stream doing Furina calcs with C2 and how many stacks you can get with the C2. Now of course it depends on the team being used and a lot of other factors. Of course this is just early calcs, so definitely things may change. But from what I got from it, you can get around 200 Fanfare stacks in a rotation combining her C2 and her skill duration. Now on top of that, with C2, you also have C1, which gives you 150 stacks for free. So if we just do a quick calc on how much damage percent Furina gives to her party with the 150 stacks from her C1 and the 200 estimated, she gives 73.5% damage bonus to her entire team during the duration of her ult. And that's a lot of damage percent. Now of course this number is a very rough estimate, but just goes to show how much Furina can buff if she's able to constantly heal or consume the party's HP. So what do I ultimately think of her C2 now? It's pretty strong. It's pretty comparable to like Nahida's C2 and Raiden's C2. If you really like Furina and you really want to vertically invest in her, seems like C2 is a good constellation for you to aim for, which is classic Hoyoverse. I definitely heavily underrated this constellation in my initial thoughts. And lastly, there was one change, we could say. Furina's signature weapon was revealed, and surprise surprise, it perfectly synergizes with her. So first of all, low base attack of 542, which makes sense because she's an HP scaler, so that's great. A lot of crit damage, 88.2%. And just to summarize the weapon's special abilities, first of all, Furina will gain 24% skill damage at full stacks, and to gain these stacks, all you have to do is have Furina increase or decrease in HP, and Furina will gain an extra 24% HP at full stacks, and to get these stacks, your party has to increase or decrease in HP. Now I don't know why there's like 2 different stacks, 2 different maximum stacks to just make this so confusing. The overall thing is very simple. Because Furina will constantly increase and decrease your party's HP, you don't have to worry about gaining max stacks. So you would just gain 24% skill damage and 24% HP for free. So yeah, obviously synergizes well with her kit. And it looks really nice too. And that's all for this update. I'm excited for any new changes that come in the upcoming weeks. I may cover them if the changes are significant enough. So if you want to continue following up on Furina's kit, make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all that jazz, and I'll talk to y'all hopefully soon. See ya.